Welcome, three-back fans. This is Trap Life, your home of talking things three-back offense oriented. A good little community here, and I'm starting to meet some good guys. And I have a refreshed energy for our three-back offenses. And I think that I gained a bigger appreciation for our three-back offenses being a longtime three-back coach, trying to veer away for the sake of keeping people happy, and then realizing, no, that's not who I am. I'm a three-back coach. This is who I am, and I'm going to do it just as we say, or just as the Twitter page says, unashamed. I'm not ashamed that I'm a three-back coach. And the people that will tell you that this is archaic, well, you know, they watch a lot of ESPN. So what can you tell them? I mean, that's what ESPN tells them, and that's not what they see on TV, right? But it's a different game. You know, I was just talking to our trainer. I'm at the basketball game last night talking to our trainer, and our trainer is talking about the previous week we had the Illinois State Championship games, right, over Thanksgiving. And we're both talking about a coach that we know and who loves to onside kick. And he says, gosh, what'd you think of his decision to keep onside kicking late in the game? It would have been nice to pin him deep. And I said, well, you know, everything's in theory. Yeah, it would have been nice to pin him deep. But you're assuming that you're watching this team on TV, and that you're assuming they have the same tools and same weapons that every team you watch on TV does. Well, when you're watching high school football on TV, you can't guarantee that that high school team has this kicker that can pin you deep. You can't guarantee that this high school team has enough fresh athletes to pin you deep at a high level. How can you guarantee this, right? I think we just always forget that what we watch on TV. We forget, in my opinion, who we watch on TV. Do you know who gets to play football on TV? Extraordinary athletes. Extraordinary, like not even the best on your team. Take every high school within, basically take the 20 closest high schools of you, and only the best athlete of all 20 of those gets to play on TV. That's who plays on TV. We don't play on TV, and we don't play on TV for a reason. One athlete out of every 20 high schools or so is good enough to play on TV. So your average fan, even your average rookie, younger coach, all you know is what you know. All you know is what you've grown up with. You haven't taken a lot of time, a lot of years to dive in and spend time defending other things and spent years trying to teach kids things. So your average fan and average younger coach, not every, they just don't know yet. It's not the same as what you're seeing on TV. It's not the same game. You're playing it with different people. Okay, you can see that bothers me a little bit. So all of that as a very long introduction, welcome to Trap Life. Today we're talking about the wisdom of one formation. Now I say one formation, but it doesn't have to be one formation. The wisdom of limiting formations. Because by default, right, I spend a lot of time on football Twitter. By default, the average conversation on Twitter revolves around the wisdom in only a couple plays and a lot of formations. You do the same play out of a bunch of formations. That's the common wisdom. And most people on Twitter, if you say that, you will be praised on Twitter. But what if you said the opposite on Twitter? You said one formation but a lot of plays. Or one formation, but a lot of variations. If you said that on Twitter, would that receive the same amount of praise and universal wisdom, be accepted as universal wisdom? No, it wouldn't be. It just wouldn't be. I tell my dad all the time that if you don't take a stand, then you're not making interesting content, right? You can't just live in the middle and try to make good content. So I can't just live in the middle. The reality is, no, you will not get accepted, is not accepted as universal wisdom to live in one formation with multiple options rather than live in multiple options or multiple formations with one option, right? They just run power, but run out of 75 formations, right? I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying you're not going to get the same amount of praise if you were to go against that thought. The thing is, a lot more coaches that live under center, there are more coaches that are 3-back type guys that will live in a formation, or at least much more limited formations than guys that would be known as highly multiple spread type guys. Those guys living under center are going to run less. But I don't want to assume that limiting formations would be a 3-back thing. I remember when I was at Champaign Central, we played Danville. And Danville, Illinois, had just been coming off a great run, big high school. But they lived almost exclusively in one formation. It was Trey, out of the gun, 1 back, and Trey, tight end, and 2 more receivers out to that side. And the Trey, not only was it always Trey to the field. And it gave you fits because they would use the field. They got a tight end right here and a great back and a great quarterback. And their 2 other receivers would split so darn wide that it was just this huge expanse of ground that you had to cover. And with a 3-man route concept. So it was tough. It was one formation. Literally, I mean, I'm sure once, they might run 10 plays or less out of different formations in that game, maybe 5 plays or less. Realistically, we're out of a different formation than Trey was Trey. So I don't want to assume that one formation is a 3-back thing. But there are more 3-back guys that would limit formations than I think there are non-3-back guys. So what is the wisdom in limiting formations? And that's what I brought our guest today, Mike Pfiester, out of Long County High School, which is in southeast Georgia. Brought him in, and he is a coach that has taken over a program that had won something like 3 to 5 games in the 5 years before he got there, and he's trying to be humble. He says, we're not world beaters, but goodness, in his 2 years, they're like 5-5 and 6-4. Well, that's a big difference from winning 5 games in 5 years. So he's doing great things. Now, you can do great things, and I think he's a good enough coach. He would have done great things in any offense, but he chose the T. He's a power T guy, and you don't get a lot of those type guys in Georgia. Right? Everyone knows the power T is most prevalent in Michigan, and probably because of Olivet College, where Coach Pfiester went to college and played. And Olivet was Irv Sigler, and Irv Sigler was power T. So that's where Pfiester got his start. Now he got his first head job. He's been a coordinator in spread offenses, and he said, I'm going with the T. So let me introduce you to Coach Pfiester, and then y'all just stay on that clip as it cuts to me asking him, hey, what is the wisdom, in your opinion, of one formation?
I think the biggest thing for us is we can emphasize player development a lot more. We can spend time making them better athletes and perfecting their craft rather than having to teach them so many different, formations, motions, personnel groups. Those when I was a spread guy, you had 4 or 5 personnel groups, and then you had your jumbo package, and you had your red zone stuff. And for us in the T, it doesn't matter if we're backed up at the -2 coming out. If we're going for a 2-point conversion, we're in the same personnel group and we're in the same formation. Now, we dabbled a little bit in. We have 2 kind of gun sets, but it's still T principles up front. That's the biggest thing for me, is if we are going to make any adjustments, it's not going to change any blocking schemes. So our kids up front, they know power is power, trap is trap, sweep is sweep. Doesn't matter how we line up. But in the T, you have so much time to then perfect your variations. So when you run power in the spread, you really probably block it 1 or 2 ways. Mm-hmm. In the T, we've got, and again, we are what I consider, we're like kind of the junior college version, and Steve and those guys, like Gus Kapolka, the guy at Cedar Springs, and John Shillito at Zealand West, those guys are like master's level, PhD level T guys. We're still kind of junior college guys. We have about 3 or 4 different ways we can block power. But we can, when you start having 3 or 4 different blocking schemes to have answers to the defense, you can do those things with your kids because they don't have to know a different formation to line up in or a different personnel group. It's we're going to run power this way, we're going to run power that way, we're going to run power that way. We have 2 or 3 different versions of trap. And so for us, we can have a lot of answers, but to everybody else, it looks like all the same stuff. They can't tell the difference. They had a hard time when you watch us. We run the same 3 plays. Well, not really, because we've blocked power 4 different ways tonight, so that's the beauty of it, is that, we can still run power and have answers to those different fronts, because that's another one of the challenges of the T. People don't just show up and run their base defense against us. We're going to get a defense of the week kind of thing, which sometimes is a good thing, because the defense is not, is experienced playing that way. And at other times it makes it a challenge, because you've repped a certain thing all week, and all of a sudden on Friday night you see something completely different. But the goal is that you've taught your kids those base rules to the point where they can kind of block anything that's E.
Now, I think that, a lot of people would counter with the idea that, well, if you sit in the same formation, if you spend a lot of time in the same formation, right, then that team, you're not making those young kids across from you think. What would be your response to that?
Well, I think the answer to that is the speed that we play with and the deception. Lining up in the T allows us to have a lot of deception, and it's very, very hard for teams that don't play that way to mimic it and prepare for it in a week. And so I think that's an advantage we have, is that, defenses that we face, a lot of times they've had 3 or 4 days to prepare for it, but their scout team's not able to provide a look that's consistent with the way we play. And again, we're still developing. We're still, we've gotten a lot better, but we have a long ways to go. But I think the speed of it, and then our ability to attack the entire field still from that one condensed formation. I see things on Twitter all the time about these bunch packages. We line up in bunch 90% of the time. We got 2 tight ends and 3 backs, but we can run sweep and get to the edge in a hurry. We can run boot or keep pass. And so we can, in quick pitch, we can do some things to get us on the edge. We can attack vertically and throw the ball deep down the field with our running backs and tight ends. And so we can still attack the field horizontally as well as vertically from that condensed set. And again, when they're seeing run 90% of the time, it's oftentimes you can sneak a halfback by somebody and get them wide open.
In my opinion, the common coach doesn't realize or doesn't understand. I would say has not taken the time to really consider how long and how much effort it takes to get high level fakes. It's an attention to detail that it doesn't just happen. Go ahead, take it away.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, that's something that I've talked to our coordinator about after this season. And I think it's something that as a new head coach and in a new program and trying to build things, there's certain things that you got to find a way to be the most competitive you can to show progress. And so sometimes you may, I wouldn't say overlook, but you don't emphasize some things enough because you're worried about a lot of other things. But those are the details that really make the difference. And that's the kind of thing that we are still trying to make sure our kids understand and we get better at. And that's one thing that I think is hard for our kids to understand, because the results that we've had, for most people, it wouldn't be that impressive. We went 5-5 my first year, made the first round of the playoffs and got beat in the first round. This year we went 6-4, made the playoffs, got beat in the first round. But keep in mind that the 4 years prior to my arrival, they were 1-39. They'd never been to the playoffs. So we made progress. So the kids see tremendous progress, but I see we don't look like Elk River looks, and we don't look like Zeeland West looks, and we don't look like Coach Brantley up in Soldanta, Alaska. We don't look like those T guys look. And so I see those details. And that's another thing that I think as a T coach, the spread guys and all those formation guys, they have a lot of things to coach. We don't have that much to coach, but what we do coach is details. So I can, the day after our playoff game, we come in on Monday and I'm showing my tailback. His first steps on trap still aren't very good. And my halfback, his first step on power, he's not gaining 6 inches. He's too flat. Those are the details. And those are the things that in practice as a young coach, guys on my staff are young and not as experienced. It's hard for them to appreciate and understand. Those are the things we need to fix. That first step, it's the tailback with the layered handoff rather than taking a traditional handoff. Those details of how does that look? What does that affect the fake? Our path when we're faking power. We're an arm's length from the defensive end. Those details of, are you an arm's length or are you fake and sweep? Because fake and sweep is different than faking off tackle. And so it's those details. Same thing with the quarterback play. Is his first step correct? Is he clearing the midline? Is he pushing the ball back to the tailback? Those nuances and details that when I was a spread coach, I didn't really get into all those details. It was just get the snap and then hand the ball off. And you got your read and you got to, there's all these other things. With the T, we're calling power. We're running power. Well, there's a lot of details in the first step of the down block, the first step of the tailback's fake, the first step of the halfback crossing over, gaining 6 inches. Those are the details. And that's the thing that is lost in most people in our system. I think it's really simple. It's not. It's extremely complex and it's very detailed.
So having this conversation with a coach, I mean, it energizes me. Now I'm easy to energize and easy to excite. So I admit that. But what it energizes me about is, I guess it refreshes me. I've felt I am easy to feel this pressure to do things out of different looks. I feel that pressure, and I only feel that pressure because I think that my colleagues are agreeing in that way, right? And that's all through Twitter. I really think that a ton of that is through Twitter. I feel this pressure to be highly multiple. But when I look at my offense, when I look at the type of offense I love, which is just like wing T, one tight end, one split, right? I want an attached guy and a split guy. That's what I like. When I look at that, I look at how everything changes, right? Like if I were to take that tight end away and try to run buck sweep at that same side, I feel like so much changes, and I get nervous about that. There are other coaches that doesn't bother them at all. They're like, yeah, just run it at the same thing. Same. For me, I don't feel that. I feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable in a lot of plays running them to the right and to the left. I mean, that's how worried I get about changing things. So I'm not saying I'm right in that. That's just how I am. So when I have a conversation like this with Coach Pfiester, I feel refreshed. I feel at ease because I go, no, there is some wisdom. It's okay. We could still be highly effective without that pressure to feel like I got to be changing formation. Everything has to look different all the time. Maybe it doesn't, right? I always use the analogy of a pitcher. A pitcher with a great fastball, he needs one thing just so that don't know the fastball's coming, but he doesn't have to throw his changeup 50% of the time to be effective. It doesn't have to be 50-50. A great pitcher might throw you 90% fastballs. Just that worry of having to worry about the other one could do enough. And I have that in my formations. I got my base, and I've got tiny little other wrinkles. I don't want to use them often, but I do throw them in there. But there are other surfaces that I feel comfortable out of. And so having these conversations, it brings me confidence. I go, yeah, there's wisdom here. And as I look at this whole conversation, it just kind of, my brain starts finding my own truth through that. Like, okay, yes, this is why I believe what I believe. And why I believe what I believe is because I don't think the average coach, I won't say they don't realize it, but I think that it is easy for us to get distracted by the other things in football, the other things in practice, getting kids in the right place and tricking our opponents, that it is so easy to overlook coaching fakes. Because you feel like it should be as easy as show them once, okay, you guys now do it. But it's not. Most coaches, myself included, for the longest time, underestimate how difficult it is to teach kids fakes, how to fake. It has to be taught at a very high level, an attention to detail that is not normal. It's abnormal, an abnormal amount of attention to the detail of a fake. Your average person, your average fan will look at the amount of time that you're spending on fakes and call it foolishness. That's how much time you have to spend on it to get fakes to a level where they are actually tricking defenders. You must spend an abnormal amount of time. So if you're going to spend an abnormal amount of time on your fakes being extraordinary, then something has to give. And that's where, for me, I give up being highly multiple. Because being highly multiple, it does take time. Because you have to rep these things, right? You're going to rep running things out of different formations. If you don't ever rep taking things out of different formations, all of a sudden you call them and the kids think you're crazy. Well, we've never done it like this before. And you can be thinking in your head, yeah, I know, but we're doing it now, so go do it. But the kids still pause and go, wait, we've never done that out of this formation. So the benefit, one of the huge benefits of limiting formations is attention to detail. Developing and perfecting your craft, as Coach said. I mentioned that in a little video, I think it was one of my first ones, why I was going back. The amount of time we spent on this fake, right hip to left hip, the quarterback's eyes, watching and following the fake, how patient he has to be, and how many times you have to rep it so that he's not in a hurry to get to his second fake. Because when he's in a hurry to get to his second fake, it completely changes or negates all the faking that you did. It's like a waste of time. And by default, kids don't understand, people don't understand how effective a fake is. You're right. The natural instinct of people is to just get to the point of attack fast. That's what they think, right? I need to get there. You're telling me to get the ball over there. I got to get it over there. So you have to take so much time slowing them down, teaching them to be patient, letting them see and understand how much time they have to actually give this fake. If you want time, that's what I tell my quarterbacks. If you want time, you have to buy that time. And in order to buy anything, you have to have currency. And how do you earn currency? By selling a fake, right? How do you buy time? I sell fakes to buy time. And if I don't sell a fake, then I have nothing to buy anything with, and therefore I have no time. Coach and I spent a little bit of time talking about that accountability to fakes. I think that's a huge thing, but I actually am going to make that into another episode. Accountability, holding kids accountable, and ideas into keeping your athletes motivated to give incredible fakes. Because when you see a team who has very special fakes and whose athletes carry out fakes at a very special level, first of all, I venture to say that they are rare. That if you play 10 games, my guess is that 9 of those teams look exactly like most teams, which is very average fakes, just your average everyday. It's clear that it's not a point of emphasis. Now, clearly, there's tons of teams winning like that, but you can tell it's not a point of emphasis. They're emphasizing other things. It is rare to see a team who emphasizes fakes and carrying out fakes. So I think that needs to be it's a whole other episode because it's hugely important. And I'm kind of on a new kick on the importance of fakes. And holding and thinking to myself, it's like I spend so much time thinking as I prepare for next summer. Like I'm telling you, my priority is excellence in the details, and carrying out fakes is one of those details. So it is a top priority for me to explore that and to come into next summer with a really good plan for how I'm going to make sure that when you turn on our film, you can see clearly that our fakes are important to us. That's my goal. That's my hope. That's my goal. That it is clear to see when you watch our film. Whoa, yeah, that's important to them. Now, there's going to be other things we don't do as well because we're not emphasizing them. Right? I'm a very average coach. I can't be great at multiple things, but I could be great at a couple. So I got to choose which couple we're going to be great at. Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for spreading the word about Trap Life. Thanks for following. If you have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter at Nate_Albaugh or look us up on Trap Life at TrapLifeFB and spread the word about the online clinic. We thank you for your support.